I'm so excited to have you both here to facilitate this discussion in honor of Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month and yoga. I would just love it if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, Dr. Ranganathan and Susanna. Whoever wants to go first, go for it.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful to be here and for the work that you both do in the world. I am a yoga unity activist is really how I would describe myself. I work at the intersections of yoga and yoga practice, and then also social justice. And I'm a writer and recently published Embrace Yoga's Roots.
I'm Shyam Ranganathan. I'm a professional philosopher and I'm a scholar of South Asia. And recently I started Yoga Philosophy, which is an online yoga philosophy school, which aims at educating and providing resources for yoga practitioners.
I love that. I'm so appreciative of what both of you bring to the world and to yoga. Dr. Ranganathan, what would you say is the objective of yoga?
So yoga is devotion to sovereignty. That's the kind of most basic idea. And sovereignty has two different aspects of being free from your past and also free to determine your future. So sovereignty then is about being unconservative and self-governing. And so the yogi works on those aspects of their life. And there's no objective, I think, in yoga, and because it's just you, right? There's nothing aside from you, but you are working towards living an increasingly sovereign life.
Could you just really quickly sum up, what are the Yoga Sutras?
So sutras are aphorisms, like they condense large ideas into tight, dense sentences. And so it's a string of these aphorisms about yoga. And so the idea is that as you unpack these sutras, you unpack the philosophy of yoga. And so if we want to really understand yoga, we go back to the Yoga Sutra.
Yeah, it's like a user manual.
Yeah, absolutely. For yourself too, which I thought was kind of, pretty cool.
Susanna, I would love to hear your take and maybe a little bit about, where yoga comes from. What is this? We always hear, oh, yoga is an ancient practice. So, what does that really mean?
Yoga is really a practice of personal and social liberation. And it has been practiced for thousands of years, and that practice has looked different. Even, across the subcontinent of India or throughout South Asia, it's not always been the same practice in every single place or in every single school or lineage.
What's really interesting about what you're saying for so many people is going to be that we're talking about a way of life, we're talking about a philosophy, and for a lot of people, their exposure to yoga is really this physical practice, which we call asana, but this physical practice on the mat. And I'd just love to hear a little take of what is that relationship between yoga and say fitness. How does yoga transcend fitness, and what is this practice? How do we correlate this with the asana practice with this philosophy?
I know I have experienced incredible benefit from asana practice, and some of that is fitness of the mind, of the body, of even something kind of amorphous like the soul or the spirit. And asana is only one aspect of all of what yoga is. And so to me, it's not, there's no problem with asana at all. It's actually a wonderful part of the practice. It's just, let's incorporate more of all of what yoga is.
I feel like we could talk about this for 100 years.
Yeah.
Moving into more of just present day yoga. Let's tackle exactly that. Within the asana practice, within these physical postures, or even within meditation, which I think we would consider to be a little bit different than just the physical postures. What are some ways that we can practice yoga within this, and what are some ways that we can practice yoga beyond these two ways of practicing?
Well, often what I say and what I hope people understand is that all life can be yoga. All of life can be an opportunity to practice yoga. And what we do on our mats, for me, often, or on the cushion, on the meditation cushion, really is there to help support the practice off of the mat or the cushion. And so I like to encourage people to explore, what's accessible to them right now. In your life, could you practice say satya, truthfulness, or ahimsa, non-harm, to yourself and to others? And how could you do that just a bit more? Those are the ways I like to start, is actually really specific to the person or the people in front of me. And then depending on what's going on in their lives and where they are, help guide them to practice just a little bit more, or open to and receive the practice of yoga in their lives a bit more.
I have a very similar response, but one of the questions I like to pose is like, how do you know you're doing yoga? Right? So everybody sits, it doesn't mean they're doing asana. Everybody breathes, doesn't mean they're doing pranayama. So there's something that makes an activity into yoga. And it's not just the doing, because, you know, like I said, that people do all the time. It doesn't mean it's yoga. And what makes something yoga is that you do it within the context of your devotion to sovereignty. Once I've kind of got the broader view, I can start thinking about more specific activities that allow me to work on my own sovereignty by challenging myself and owning my own choices. And then anything could be yoga, right? As Susanna said. And in fact, a yogi, everything is yoga. Everything is an opportunity for them to work on themselves.
Okay, well, now that we have a lot to think about, where do you think that someone could start their practice, or any resources that you think are a good place to begin?
Yoga is a practice that we can work on even if we're not good at it. And that's so important, because when we're starting out, we're never good at it, at anything, right? But so many other ways of looking at life assume or require that you have to be good as a condition of knowing what to do, right? And so yoga is this remarkable gift. Like, you don't have to be good, and neither your teachers, right? Nobody has to be good. They just have to be committed to working on it.
Yes, I love that answer. And, you know, I think a lot of people, and myself included, come to yoga through suffering, come to yoga through not feeling at home, you know, in my case, not at home in my body as a mixed person, as an immigrant in the United States, as someone dealing with racism and, you know, sexism, and not having answers for how to show up as a powerful being in response to the conditions that I found myself. But also, sometimes we have anxiety, sometimes we're really busy or we're overwhelmed and there's not enough spaciousness in life, you know, for whatever the reason. I think knowing that there is a practice that can support us with these concerns.
That's really important. Thank you for sharing, both of you. I really appreciate that. Let's talk about moving forward. Dr. Ranganathan, can you share a little bit about your vision and how you are working on educating the larger yoga community? I know you have philosophy courses. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, great. Thank you. So I think one of the really important requirements for educating ourselves of kind of the original yoga is to be familiar with yoga philosophy, because that's the way it started out. It started out as a philosophy of life, and then you practiced it, right? And so I share a lot of stuff on social media. We have these chats on IG frequently. It's a great way to just start the conversation.
Would you say that your vision includes practitioners of yoga just having to grasp the philosophy?
Oh yeah. Well, my aspiration is that we overcome the kinds of challenges that we've been talking about by taking on the responsibility to understand what yoga is. That's kind of, and that involves learning something about yoga philosophy, right? And that's not something that just happens. Philosophy, you know, I started when I was 19. I'm almost 50. It takes a long time to really kind of understand. And one of the things I pointed out is a lot of times people just want to understand yoga without understanding all sorts of different philosophical options. That's like trying to learn chemistry while only focusing on hydrogen, right? Like that somehow the rest of the periodic table doesn't matter. That is, you only really start to appreciate how awesome and wonderful yoga is when you can situate it within all sorts of alternatives that yoga provides us critical responses to. So my vision, my aspiration, my hope is to share that type of wider appreciation of yoga. But that also means just learning more.
I will say, I think I'm guilty of really focusing on learning about yoga but thankfully I do read a lot of what you write. So hopefully we're getting a little bit of context there. Susanna, I know you have teacher training programs. I know you're a speaker. I know you are such an amazing advocate for social justice and, like you said, unity and yoga. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your vision. You know, what are your dreams and hopes for both students and teachers, so practitioners and people in position of sharing yoga?
You know, I really hope, and I think the thing that drives me in doing this work is that when I think about, say, 300 or 500 years from now, when we're all gone, but yoga is still here, that the yoga that's being practiced is a more broad understanding of what yoga is, that yoga hasn't just been reduced to fitness. Like I said, I'm so much about like the joy of this, right? The opposite, I often say the opposite to cultural appropriation or the reduction of this practice is creativity, and it is joyful. And so you can often find me dancing on Instagram and reels, educating about really sometimes heavy topics, but doing it with so much fun, because to me, that's what this is about, is like being more fully expressed. For any of the folks watching and listening, is like, how can we experience that peace, that freedom, that deeper breath or moments of liberation that we might experience on our mats or on our cushions in more and more and more of our lives, and also create access to that for others. The other thing that I love to speak about and teach about is issues of appropriation, because sometimes cultural appropriation can be that doorway to deeper understanding and learning more about how to be in respectful and right relationship and honoring relationship with a practice. So people ask me or come to me for, whether or not to say namaste at the end of a class or at the beginning of a class, those types of things. I'd love to explore and share with people. But ultimately, I think being devoted to being students of yoga and to continuing to practice, that's what I wish. I hope that this practice, which has brought me so much freedom and liberation and really truly so much union, to the point where when I was young, I felt like I wasn't at home in myself, like anywhere I lived, I never felt like I fit. And now I actually feel truly at home in myself wherever I am. And that is only possible because of the yoga practice.
That's beautiful. And I do feel your joy, and I love your dancing posts, your posts. Thank you both so much. I am so appreciative of you sharing your wisdom. I'm so honored to get to chat with you. Hopefully we will get to incorporate all of these little nuggets of wisdom into our practices over the next many years, hundreds of years. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.